Hey there, this is Reba of Team Reba, Remax Metro East Side, and today we're going to talk about the fascinating subject of seller disclosure forms. Very exciting stuff. So if you are a seller and selling your home, or actually not even just your home, it could be your investment property too, it is required in Washington State that for improved property, meaning a structure on the land, that you fill out one of these wonderful forms, which are now currently 6 pages long. Used to be 5 pages, now it's up to 6 pages. And this information that you have to fill out here is basically anything that you know about the property. Now, the wonderful thing here, as I'm going to put closely up, you can see, probably backwards, that there's yes, no, don't know, and not applicable. We want to thank them for finally putting in not applicable because it used to only be the 3. And oftentimes things such as like if it wasn't a manufactured home, well, that was not applicable. If you were on sewer and not septic, not applicable. So they finally updated these. So as a seller, what this does is you fill in information about what you know about the title of the property. Now, some of these are kind of sticky questions. So what we always tell people is if you don't think you know exactly what they mean by it, call us. Put your list together because they're by section and letter. So title, section 1, subsection A through, whatever it is. And if you put a list together of where your questions are, then your agent, you send that. Your agent can then address the question with you. They can't answer the question for you, but they can at least describe what it is the question is asking about. Because many people don't know what is first right of refusal. What is an option? I can't even begin to tell you how many times someone has put the answer no on lease or rental agreement when it's a rental property. So there's a lot of different things that get done in here, and you want to make sure you're answering it correctly because here's the thing. State of Washington says, hey, you seller, fill this out to the best of your abilities in a truthful manner. And it's up to the buyer. There's another big section in caps that tells the buyer, hey, you have a responsibility to do due diligence. The seller might be providing this for you, but they're not warranting anything about the building. Because in many cases, they may not have been in the attic. They probably haven't been in a crawl space in ages, if ever. So there's a lot of information that you have to, caveat emptor, let the buyer beware, you need to check out, right? So from a seller's perspective, though, we're going to say, so like you seller, you don't need to go get in your crawl space. When it asks, has it flooded? You don't need to go look. You just try and remember, do you know if it ever did? And then honestly answer the questions. So it starts out with the title, and then it goes into things about the property itself. Next section is about water and whether there's potable water, how the plumbing is set up. There's a number of different things. Is there irrigation water? Which I want to point out for you sellers. Irrigation water means like, do you live in Eastern Washington and you're on the Columbia drawing water from the river, or you're on some other form of irrigation? It doesn't mean I have a sprinkler system. There's a different section that says, do you have a sprinkler system? So try not to confuse the terms. People oftentimes do mix them up a little bit. So just, again, ask questions. It's actually really smart to go through and read it one time all the way through just to see the kinds of questions and then start again back at the beginning because now you're not seeing it for the very first time. That's when people start to make mistakes because sometimes the information overlaps in some spots and they miss that or don't know it's coming. And then they start to fill in something that maybe they could have waited till another portion of the document to fill out, right? Another high suggestion for me is as you go through, highlight those ones where you need a little more information. That way you can go back to it very easily because this is, as you can see, really small print in single spacing. So go easy on yourself. Take a little time. Don't rush this, okay? Because this is an important document. Once you get through the water, then it starts talking about sewer and septic, right? Then it goes into the structural with questions such as, has the roof leaked within the last 5 years? Has the basement flooded or leaked? A lot of big structural items here. It's going to ask about the entire structure. And again, you may not know. The state of Washington does not require you to go out and find out, okay? So yes, no, I don't know, not applicable. Those are all your answer options. Now, there are some where you need to fill in more information, like, do you know the age of the house? Yes. Well, was it built in 1928, 1955, 1982? You know, like you put in the appropriate information, right? Has it been inspected before? And if you did have an inspection, do you have the inspection company's name or the person? You know, that kind of stuff. Once you get through that, then they talk about systems and fixtures. That's things like the electrical, the hot water tank, things of those types of nature, the furnace, sump pump, you name it. Then it goes into homeowners associations. Now, not everyone has one, but it also mentions common interests. I want to point out, common interests don't only just show up in homeowners associations. They can come in PUDs. They can come in other forms. Now, remember also at the beginning of this, when we talk about title, there's also things about encroachments and easements. These are other things that could be about common interests with somebody. And I need to possibly get my dog to go outside. So anyway, after that, then they get into environmental issues. You know, like, did you used to have an oil tank on the premises? Is there one still there? Has it been decommissioned? Things of that nature. Is there asbestos? Are there wetlands? Is there floodlands? A lot of different kinds of questions of that type. Lead-based paint. This section has to be in here, and everyone answers it. It's only, again, 1978 and older is where this one really comes in. If your home's from 1985 to today, 1980 to today, even 79, just keep in mind they were producing paint with lead up until 1978, and then they let the shops sell out their inventory through to 1980. So sometimes homes from 79 and 80 could potentially still have these issues, but most people don't usually test for it. Not because they don't really want to or don't think it could be a problem, because it can be a problem, but most people just don't think about it. Because we always joke around and say, well, you know, don't lick the walls and gnaw on the baseboards. But reality is lead poisoning can be a major thing and a major health issue. And it affects small children with their brains if they do ingest it, which is why they stopped using these kinds of paints on cribs and things in the past. But you just have to be aware of it. The reason why it matters on a house, too, is if you have peeling paint that might have lead in it and a kid's outside and they're picking that up and putting it in their mouth, that's part of the other problem. It's not just what happens on the inside. And keep in mind, if you have a house that may have that and is of the age where it could have been there, if you're going to do invasive kinds of construction on your home, make sure that either you take care of yourself, or if you're hiring someone, state of Washington requires you to have somebody who has certification in dealing with lead-based paint, okay? Because they have to handle it a certain way and keep their employees safe as well and keep you safe. So just be aware of that. So beyond that, then they get into manufactured and mobile homes. So of course, most of the property around here is not that. 10% or less is actually manufactured or mobile. And then there's a question number 10, which says, full disclosure by sellers. Is there anything else that's not addressed inside of this document that maybe somebody should know, which is either a material defect or something that would grossly impact the property, you know, meaning its usage by the next person purchasing it from you. So those are the kinds of questions that are there. Now, very importantly, there's this section. I'm actually showing you somebody else's report here that they filled out recently. And you can see he filled in some stuff. Good on this guy. We had Jen meet with him and he had some stuff. And so they filled it out properly, meaning they got together. He asked questions. If an item is asterisked, let me show you real close here. See how these letters have asterisks next to them? If you say yes to any of those, you need to fill in something down here that explains why you said yes. So again, an example is there lead-based paint in the home? If you say yes, you have reports on that, then you need to put down below where the reports are, or you need to attach a copy of that report. So those are the types of things that you want to do. Now, on the last page are a couple of different things. You're going to note at the top of page 6 that it talks about sex offenders, and if a buyer wants to know that information. So if you, seller, happen to know that there is a registered sex offender within your neighborhood, You don't have to provide that information, but it does put a buyer on notice that if they want to know that, they need to go and do their research. And now most of, level 1, 2, and 3 is found online. Used to be level 3 only was found online. Then they put level 2. And now I believe level 1 even might be, but it's still, if you want to be safe on that information, you go to the local police department for the location of the property that you're trying to purchase. Okay. And proximity to farming. Yeah, so we do still have agriculture over here in Western Washington. And if you're buying in an area where there's an agricultural valley that's, got cows and farming practices and, sheep or whatever going on, if they were there before you, they have a right to stay there. So that's what the right to farming is. We've had people, buy in developments where there's farms nearby, and then they want to talk about the noxious smells. Well, they were there first. And the state of Washington says that farmer has a right to stay there. And, sorry if you didn't notice it when you purchased. So that's kind of what that's about. And then the parts under that then are about buyer acknowledgments. So when you're selling, there's 3 different sections here that are key. This one being that a buyer needs to acknowledge they've received a copy of this, because every transaction, like I said earlier, has to have one of these. Now, if you get this in advance of your, like when you're going on market and this is available for those buyers to review, they can acknowledge they've received it. And if they're doing pre-inspections, or maybe we're in a fast-paced market like we are in today in 2018, they might also want to waive their right to cancel, which negates the 3-day right to cancel based on information inside of here. Because if you're in your transaction and then you hand this to somebody, or your agent does it for you, well, if you've waited till you're 15 days in the transaction and maybe your buyer got nervous, they can use this to cancel within 3 days of receipt. So what you're looking for and hoping for is that they're going to waive their right to cancel based on this, and that they've read it and they feel like they understand it, they've done their inspection and that kind of thing. And then this one, this is rare to have used, but this is waiver of right to receive the completed disclosure. Now, when would somebody use that? Well, in the state of Washington, estate sales are exempt from having to fill these out, because what that means is somebody has passed away and the person who is helping the executor or executrix has not lived in the property, and so they don't know how to fill this out. They have no reason to fill this out because they know nothing about the property in most cases. Now, if they do know something, they are still obligated to disclose. If they actually really knew something, they are obligated to disclose. If the agent knows something about the property, they are required to disclose if it's a material defect. Okay, so just know that. The other times we see this is sometimes in, maybe it's a foreclosure, and a lot of times the banks don't want to be responsible for any of the information inside of here because they didn't live there either. So a lot of times they're going to be like, hey, we know we're obligated, but we're telling you we're not going to, and we need you to sign that you're waiving your right to receive it. So just those are kind of the main things about this. If you ever have questions on them, you can feel free to get a hold of me at 206-910-3429. And if you want to send a question about it via email, send it to info@teamreba.com and we will get back to you right away. So again, Form 17, seller's disclosure form. So you sellers out there, get ready to do a little writing. Get your reading glasses out if you need them. And make sure, I'm going to really give you this suggestion, make sure you have something that helps you keep the lines together, because you don't want to suddenly check the wrong boxes as you're going through this. Now, you can do it online, so we can send it to you online, or you can do it in print like this gentleman did. But just let us know what works best for you. But again, questions to us at info@teamreba.com. I'm at 206-910-3429. This is Reba Hass of Team Reba, Remax Metro East Side.